Hi, happy Friday or whatever day it is you are tuning in, and welcome back to another episode of Living in Alignment with Madeline Hope. I have been thinking a lot this past week about authenticity, experience, and honestly just what it means to be a human, which sounds like such a massive topic when I say it like that, but it has been showing up in a really normal, like everyday way. I've been noticing how often we think we have to make ourselves more polished, healed, productive, emotionally regulated, or just generally easier to understand before we let ourselves fully participate in our own lives. And I've been thinking about how unhelpful perfection actually is when it comes to connection, because people can admire perfection. They can look at it and think it's beautiful or impressive or inspiring. But it's really hard to connect with someone when they've edited out everything human about themselves. Connection happens through recognition. It happens when somebody says something and you think, oh my gosh, I do that too. Or when you see someone trying, struggling, learning, changing their mind, needing help, saying the wrong thing and coming back to repair it. We recognize ourselves in other humans by being human. And I feel like I am being reminded that I need to let myself be human more. As I'm recording this on Wednesday, this week has held a lot emotionally. Some of it involves people I love, so I'm not going to share all of the details because they aren't entirely my stories to tell. And I actually think that's an important part of authenticity, too. Being authentic doesn't mean everybody is entitled to every detail of your life. It doesn't mean you have to expose yourself or the people around you in order to be honest. You can protect details and still tell the truth about what an experience brought up in you. And what I can say is that there were some family things happening this past week that activated the part of me that immediately wants to become responsible for everybody. I start scanning the situation, like who needs support, who needs someone to talk to, what can I do, how can I help, is everyone okay? And before I even realize it, my nervous system has made itself the emotional project manager of a situation that I didn't create and can't single handedly resolve. I had a conversation with someone I love where I was reminded that I don't have to be everything for everyone. Other people can help, other people can be safe places. I'm allowed to let someone else carry something, even when I care deeply about the person that's involved. And I just started crying when I was given the permission to let go of the need to be everything for everyone, the idea in my head that I had to be that. Once I was like told that, hey, I am doing that and it's actually not necessary. I don't have to do that. And this isn't like I started crying because I suddenly learned like this brand new piece of information. Like, obviously, logically, I know I'm not responsible for every person I love. But knowing something and experiencing someone giving me permission to put it down are like two different things. Sometimes support doesn't feel like someone giving you like the perfect advice. Sometimes it's someone quietly taking one of the bags out of your hands and saying, you don't have to carry this one too. And I think that moment touched something much larger in me. It made me realize how often I've connected being a good person with being the person who can handle everything, being thoughtful, being useful, being emotionally aware, being responsible, knowing what to say, having the answer, being able to explain why something is happening and what everyone should do next. But being human means I am sometimes going to be tired. I'm going to need help. I'm going to misunderstand things. I'm going to have emotional reactions that aren't logical. I'm going to care about people and still not know what to do. I'm going to need time before I know how I feel. Like, this isn't a failure of self awareness. That is the experience of being alive. I also had a beautiful weekend with a friend. We stayed up way too late talking both nights, and I was so exhausted after the weekend, but it reminded me of the same thing that I'm talking about in a completely different way. Real connection is not neat or optimized. Sometimes you stay up later than you planned because the conversation matters more. Sometimes the house isn't perfect. Sometimes you're tired and unfiltered and laughing about something stupid. And those are the moments when you actually get to know one another and connect. You don't connect because both people performed the ideal version of friendship. You connect because you were there. You experienced something together. You let yourself be known for who you are. And I think I've been considering this through the lens of my work too, especially with this podcast and the content that I create. I never want to present wellness or alignment as becoming a person who handles every experience beautifully. That's not what alignment means to me. Alignment is the relationship you build with yourself while you are having the experience. It's being able to notice that you're overwhelmed without immediately deciding that you're failing. It's recognizing when you're trying to control something because you don't feel safe. It's apologizing when you need to. It's knowing when the most honest thing you can say is, I don't know yet. Sometimes I think our obsession with improving ourselves can become another way of rejecting ourselves. We want to heal so thoroughly that nothing ever triggers us. We want routines that prevent us from ever feeling scattered. We want enough self awareness that we never make an imperfect decision. We want to regulate ourselves so well that we never have an inconvenient emotion. But I don't think the goal is to become a person who never gets overwhelmed, never says the wrong thing, never needs help, or never has a messy reaction. I think the goal is to become someone who knows how to remain herself, himself, themselves whenever those things happen. That is a very different kind of growth. And looking at this past week's astrology, it makes so much sense that all of this has been coming up. We had the Cancer new moon on Tuesday, closely connected to Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Cancer rules our emotional foundations, family patterns, needs, vulnerability, belonging, and the roles we learn to take in order to make ourselves feel safe. Mercury retrograde has been walking us back through those stories. We've been reconsidering how we communicate our needs and how much of our present behavior is still being shaped by an old emotional role. The new moon wasn't necessarily a little cute, set your intentions and manifest your dream life kind of new moon. It felt like a reset occurring much deeper in our emotional body. Where did you learn that love meant responsibility? Where did you learn that being needed made you valuable? Where did you learn that you had to be calm, helpful, impressive, agreeable, or easy to love? And who might you become if you let yourself be a person instead of constantly trying to be the perfect response to everyone else? That is also extremely personal astrology for me. And I want to explain that because I think it's a really good example of how we can all live beneath the same astrology, but experience it through a completely different part of our lives. And I will do a podcast, by the way, explaining houses and degrees and transits and how I'm doing all of this. I've been getting that request. Someone very close to me has been talking to me about this and recommending this. And that is something I'm working on, by the way. My chart has several early Aquarius placements, including my Sun, Mercury, and Neptune. My North Node and my Moon are in Leo on the complete opposite side of the chart. So, one of my biggest lessons in my chart is moving from observing, understanding, and thinking about the collective human experience into allowing myself to have a personal human experience and then letting people see it. Aquarius can step outside of something and observe it. It wants to understand the pattern, the meaning, the bigger picture, how everything connects. I genuinely love that part of myself. It's a massive part of how I create, coach, communicate. But my Leo moon and North node are asking me to come back inside myself to speak from my heart instead of only explaining the concept, to risk being personally seen, to create something because I feel something, not only because I know it's going to help somebody. And Saturn in my chart puts pressure on that entire opposition, which is where some of my perfectionism and self doubt can come from. I feel like I need to be grounded, certain, responsible, and fully prepared before I express myself. So, when I talk about learning to let myself be human, I know this is one of my specific lifelong lessons. I may experience it because of that more intensely or through different circumstances than everybody else does. But I don't believe the collective message is that everyone needs to experience what I experienced this week. The collective question is, where are you standing outside of your own life and monitoring yourself instead of experiencing it? Maybe that shows up for you in relationships where you are so focused on responding correctly that you don't say how you really feel. Maybe it's in your body where you are so focused on improving it that you are barely getting to inhabit and enjoy it. Maybe it's through your work, your job, where you keep preparing and editing because you don't want anyone else to see you learning. Maybe you have turned healing into another impossible standard that you use to measure whether you're worthy yet. The situation can be completely different while the underlying experience is the same. And that brings us into the astrology of July 17th through the 24th, because this is a very significant week. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all connecting around the same degree of their signs. There is a huge amount of future facing energy here: imagination, transformation, innovation, expansion, and the possibility of seeing an entirely different path forward. But Jupiter is also opposing Pluto, which means that all of that possibility can activate issues around power, control, urgency, obsession, ego, and the desire to force an outcome. You may see some posts on Instagram saying this means like, oh, you should dream big and something amazing will happen. But I think this is all asking us a deeper question about whether we can allow our lives to expand without trying to control exactly what that expansion has to look like. Can you follow genuine excitement without immediately turning it into pressure? Can you let yourself experiment without needing the experiment to prove something about you? Can you be inspired and still stay connected to reality? And can you move toward the future without rejecting the imperfect person who is going to have to live it? This configuration is also landing almost exactly on my Aquarius Leo axis. Jupiter is sitting on my Leo North node, while Pluto is on my Aquarius, Mercury, and Neptune. And Uranus and Neptune are supporting all of it. So, yeah, I'm very curious how this week's going to pan out for me. But I am also reminding myself that astrology is not a delivery service. I don't need to sit around waiting for a giant sign or a life changing opportunity to arrive at my front door. For me, participating in this astrology may be choosing to just speak more honestly. It may be me posting something before I've polished it a ton or edited it a lot. It may be trusting the work I'm already building and not rewriting my plan a million times. It may be making one decision that matches the person that I keep saying I want to become. That is where I think we misunderstand big astrology sometimes. The sky can open a door, but we still have to participate in our lives. So let's move through the week. Friday, July 17th, has a Virgo moon, which brings our attention back to the details of our lives, our bodies, routines, work, health, and everything that needs tending to. This can be helpful after such an emotional new moon week because Virgo gives us somewhere practical to put that energy. Clean something, organize your thoughts, take care of your body, finish a little task that's been quietly stressing you out. Venus and Saturn are also forming a supportive creative connection. So there is something here about giving love, beauty, or creativity a little more structure. Just watch the tendency to start correcting yourself because Virgo energy can very quickly take us from caring for something into criticizing it. There is a difference between supporting yourself and treating yourself like a project that is never finished. Later Friday night, Uranus in Gemini forms an exact trine with Pluto in Aquarius. This is the first of several exact trines that's going to happen over the next couple of years. So we are really entering a much longer story around transformation in communication, technology, ideas, community, and how we understand the future. On a personal level, this can feel like recognizing that an old way of thinking no longer fits who you are becoming. You may feel like a sudden realization, but the change itself may not happen right away. Pluto works very deeply and slowly, and Uranus liberates. So something can click internally that begins changing the direction of your life over time. Pay attention to the idea, conversation, or realization that makes you feel more like yourself. You don't need to know the complete plan yet. Just notice what feels alive. The Virgo moon continues through Saturday, so I would treat Saturday as really just an integration day. There is so much larger movement happening in the background, but Saturday gives us an opportunity to return what's directly in front of us. What can I actually do today? What would make my space, my body, or my mind feel more supported? Saturday's a great day for movement, reset, meal prep, cleaning, writing, organizing, or giving an idea of yours a little more shape, practicality. But I want to repeat that the point is support, not perfection. Do not spend your entire Saturday preparing to live. Do not clean the house so thoroughly that you never sit down and enjoy it. Don't create the perfect schedule and then become angry with yourself the first time you behave like a human being inside of it. Build a structure that can actually hold your real life with emotion and being a human. A sustainable routine needs enough flexibility for you to be tired, emotional, spontaneous, social, or simply uninterested sometimes. Otherwise, it's not supporting your humanity. It is demanding that you constantly outperform your humanity, and that's not what we're trying to do. Then on Sunday, July 19th, the moon moves into Libra and Mars in Gemini forms a sextile with Saturn in Aries. I really like this energy for Sunday because Mars gives us movement and Saturn gives us that direction, that movement direction. So this is not chaotic, impulsive action. It's the kind of energy that helps you take something you've been thinking about and turn it into a realistic next step. That's so exciting. We've had such really confusing drive energy where it's like pump the brakes. We don't know we don't have it all figured out. Sunday looks really, really good. So if a conversation needs to happen, you may feel more capable of approaching it calmly. If you've been overwhelmed by a goal, you may be able to see your actual first step. If you need a boundary, this energy supports expressing it through your actions instead of explaining it 15 different ways. The Libra moon also brings relationships and balance into focus. Libra wants connection, but healthy connection cannot require one person to constantly abandon themselves in order to maintain the peace. Ask yourself whether you are creating harmony or merely preventing other people from feeling uncomfortable, because that's not the same thing. This is also a beautiful day to let support be mutual. Let someone help you. Ask the question. Divide the responsibility. Hey, you do the dishes, I'll do the laundry. Have an honest conversation. You don't have to prove that you are loving by doing every single thing alone. That's my little Sunday love note for you. Monday, July 20th is really one of the biggest days of this entire week. That would be the peak of this week. Jupiter in Leo trines Neptune in Aries and opposes Pluto in Aquarius. Jupiter trine Neptune can feel incredibly hopeful, creative, intuitive, generous, and imaginative. It can reconnect us to a vision that feels meaningful. We may be able to see beyond the limitations of the current moment and imagine what else could be possible. With Jupiter in Leo, this vision wants heart. It wants courage, creativity, visibility, and genuine self-expression. Neptune in Aries wants us to believe in a new beginning before we have every piece of evidence. But Jupiter is also opposing Pluto, and that is where we have to remain honest. Big hope can become a big ego trip. Inspiration can become obsession. A desire to create something meaningful can become a desire to prove that we're powerful, special, successful, or finally worthy. If you suddenly feel like you have to change your entire life on Monday, pause. There is nothing wrong with feeling excited. Let yourself feel it. Write the vision down. Talk about it. Make art from it. Take one step toward it. Just pay attention to the energy underneath the action. Fear usually creates urgency. It says you have to make it happen right now or the opportunity will disappear. It makes you tighten, control, over-explain, prove, and obsess over the outcome. Intuition can be exciting, but beneath the excitement, there is usually something steady. It feels like recognition. It feels like, oh, this belongs to me, even when you don't exactly know how it's going to unfold. Monday is not asking you to make your vision smaller. It's asking you to be honest about whether you are following the vision or using it to run away from being human where you are. Then we have Tuesday, July 21st. And Tuesday morning brings the first quarter moon in Libra, while Jupiter forms a sextile with Uranus in Gemini. The first quarter moon is the point in the lunar cycle where the intentions and the realizations from the Cancer new moon meet some friction. This is where we have to respond to what becomes clear. The Cancer new moon asks what we need in order to feel emotionally safe, supported, and at home within ourselves. The Libra first quarter moon asks us how those needs interact with our relationships. Where does keeping the peace cost you your honesty? Where do you expect other people to read your mind because expressing your needs feels too vulnerable? Where are you overcompensating because you are afraid that being a real person will make you harder to love? Jupiter sextile Uranus can bring opportunity, new ideas, unexpected support, or a willingness to try something differently. This is very future focused energy, but it doesn't require a dramatic leap. Try the thing, send the message, share the idea, change part of the plan that no longer makes sense. Give yourself permission to experiment. You are allowed to learn through experience. You do not need to predict and prevent every possible mistake before you begin. Nobody handed you a rule book when you came on this earth. Like, we're all figuring it out as we go. The moon moves into Scorpio later in the morning, so emotions may deepen as the day continues. Something that initially seems like a very practical decision could later expose a deeper fear around vulnerability, trust, control, or being seen. Let the deeper feeling tell you that it matters. It doesn't automatically decide what you do, it's just information. Wednesday, July 22nd, the moon is in Scorpio and the sun enters Leo in the afternoon. Happy Leo season! I love Leo season as a Leo moon, obviously. Happy birthday to all of my Leos. I have many Leos I love. Happy, 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 happy birthday. Leo season brings us back to creativity, joy, confidence, play, self-expression, visibility, and the courage to let something come directly from our hearts. And maybe I'm biased as a Leo moon and North Node, but I think this is such an important shift after everything Cancer season and Mercury retrograde have brought up emotionally. We've spent weeks looking backward. We've been revisiting feelings, conversations, family patterns, memories, and the meaning of emotional safety. Leo is going to come in and ask us, okay, now that you understand more about yourself, will you actually let yourself live? Will you create? Will you play? Will you let people see what you care about? Will you participate even if you can't guarantee how you'll be perceived? The Scorpio moon means we probably are not entering Leo season feeling completely light and carefree. There may be some deeper emotions moving through us, but I don't think we have to resolve every emotion before we allow ourselves to experience joy, right? You can be processing something and still laugh. You can be uncertain and still make something. You can feel vulnerable and still let yourself be visible. You are a whole person. You do not have to wait until every complicated part of you has disappeared before you're allowed to enjoy your life. Thursday is tender but important. The sun in Leo squares Chiron in Taurus, and Mercury stations direct in Cancer later in the day. Sun square Chiron can bring up sensitivity around confidence, visibility, self-worth, the body, security, and whether we feel safe being ourselves. Something may touch the exact place where you feel like you are not enough yet, not healed enough, not confident enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough, not certain enough to be seen. And I think the instinct may be to retreat until we return as a more perfect version of ourselves. But this aspect can show us where hiding has become part of the wound. Sometimes healing doesn't happen before we let ourselves be seen. Sometimes allowing ourselves to be seen gently and perfectly and with discernment is part of how the wound heals. Mercury also stations direct in Cancer Thursday evening after being in retrograde since June 29th. We may begin understanding what the past few weeks have been trying to show us about our emotions, communication, family, memories, and the sense of belonging. But station days can feel foggy. Mercury is changing direction, so I wouldn't expect every delayed conversation and confusing feeling to resolve itself instantly at 5:57 p.m. Mercury will remain in its post retrograde shadow until August 6th. Clarity is returning, but it may return gradually. Notice what you understand now that you didn't understand 3 weeks ago. What feeling keeps returning? What conversation have you been rehearsing? What role are you becoming tired of playing? What truth feels simpler now? You don't need to force the conclusion. Let the pieces begin settling into place. By Friday, the moon is in Sagittarius and Mercury forms a sextile with Venus in Virgo. This feels lighter, more open, more conversational. Mercury and Venus support honest communication, writing, creative expression, reconnection, and conversations that help us understand one another. Venus in Virgo still wants sincerity and care. This isn't necessarily about giving a dramatic speech. It could be saying this simple thing clearly. I care about you. I need help. That hurt my feelings. I changed my mind. I don't know yet. I want to try. There is so much intimacy in allowing our words to be simple. I've learned that a lot as a chronic over-explainer. The Sagittarius moon also helps us zoom back out and reconnect with meaning. After the emotional depth of the Scorpio moon and Mercury station, we may begin seeing how the experience fits into a larger story. Just remember that finding meaning in something does not require pretending it was easy or that you are grateful for every painful part. Meaning is not the same thing as forcing a silver lining. Sometimes the meaning is simply that you experienced something honest, learned more about yourself, and now you're choosing how you want to move forward. That's enough. If I had to sum up the entire movement of this week, it would be this. We begin by tending to what is real. We allow ourselves to imagine something bigger. We notice where control or perfection tries to hijack our vision. And then we practice letting ourselves be seen before we have completely figured ourselves out. This week is not asking you to become the perfect version of yourself. It's asking you to enter your life as the person that you are. Because you can't experience your life and constantly monitor yourself from outside of it at the same time. At some point, you have to let the conversation be imperfect. You have to post the thing. You have to wear the outfit. You have to ask for help. You have to try the pose, make the art, take the trip, share the opinion, or admit that you care. You have to experience to teach you something that preparation never could. And I want to be clear that letting yourself be human doesn't mean refusing accountability or deciding that growth doesn't matter. It means that growth is no longer something use to postpone loving, expressing, and experiencing yourself. You can be accountable without hating the version of you who made the mistake. You can want to improve your life without treating your current life like an inconvenience. You can care deeply about people without making yourself responsible for every emotion they experience. You can tell the truth while still respecting what's private. You can be authentic without making yourself accessible to everybody. And you can be seen without first becoming flawless. A few journal prompts I want to leave with you for this week are these. Where am I performing competence, wellness, or confidence instead of letting myself be human? What part of me do I believe must be fixed before it can be seen? What experience am I missing because I am so focused on doing it correctly? And what might become possible if I stopped trying to be impressive and allowed myself to be connectable? I think the practice this week is to just intentionally let one thing be human. Let a conversation be honest instead of perfectly worded. Let a workout meet the body you actually have that day. Let yourself create something before you know exactly what it's going to become. Let somebody support you without immediately trying to earn the support. Let yourself experience one moment without turning it into content, evidence, productivity, or a lesson. You're allowed to just be there. You're allowed to be affected. You're allowed to change because you lived something, not because you perfectly understood it first. Thank you guys so much for being here and for letting me share my own imperfect human experience with you. I love you, and I will talk to you next week. But until then, stay grounded.